All right, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi.
We are concluding our series. We are talking about the names of God.
Okay. So we're just gonna mostly just talk about a handful of names of God tonight. I'm pretty sure if you just do a Google search, you'll get like a really long
sure.
list.
Yeah.
I feel at some point there was a very popular book of 80 names of God.
So many.
But that also seems very high. But I also feel like that's probably accurate.
Maybe.
But I could be wrong.
Wouldn't be the first time either of us were wrong, to be fair.
Yeah. But I know there are a lot. There's at least 30 because we've done that in the church.
Well, January's 31 days.
So then there's at least 31 because we've done that. Unless we skip like January 1. Yeah. But there's that, right? So last episode, we spoke about Jehovah Shalom, which is God is our peace.
Oh, I wasn't sure what was happening.
And so we spoke about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I guess first one I want to talk about tonight is God is the everlasting God. There is a name here, but I feel like I'm going to say it really, really incorrectly.
Just try.
So I'm going to skip it.
Okay. Can you just put it in the text? Like on the
No,
screen?
because it looks really, really simple to say. So I really don't want to embarrass myself like that right now.
The people need to know.
God, he's the everlasting God.
Yeah, but what's the translation?
Well, it's taken from Isaiah 26:4, and it says, "Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength." Right? Okay, so.
So then, is he the everlasting God or the strong God?
So, good question.
Oh, thanks.
All right. When we talk about God being everlasting or eternal, does that have any impression or impact on you?
I think that's a strange question to ask.
Okay. Does it have an effect on you? Does it matter to you? Does it stick out to you? Is it something that we've said so many times in church? Yeah. It just kind of it just is. It's just like, okay.
I mean, if you look at it like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, whoa, this is the same God that like was there with David and Goliath, or that like protected him from Saul, or like this is the same God that parted the seas and gave Moses the 10 Commandments on a tablet that he then broke on his way down because he was angry, and then gave him another one down the line. Right? And then, whoa, this is the same God that like put my parents together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it's crazy that it's the same one throughout all of time, but that's also what it means when they say that God is which one is it? Omnipotent?
You're asking for a big word. You're asking the wrong person with big words right now. You're asking the wrong person. Should I put that one in the bottom of the screen?
If you can pick the right one.
I'm just gonna put all three.
Omnipresent. I believe is the one I'm looking for.
So I agree with what you're saying, right? But when we talk about God as everlasting or eternal.
But also, sorry. This is the same God that's going to be there when I'm dead and gone, carrying my like lineage on. Insane. You can go now.
I was going to make a joke, but it's really mean.
Do it. Show the people who you are.
I can cut it out. No. So when I see, okay, God is everlasting, he's eternal, right? Yes, there is that aspect of everlasting as it relates to time, right? Past, present, future, right? But then I also look at it as God is an everlasting source of blank,
Okay.
right? So last episode we talked about God is peace, right? So now when you look at his attribute of being everlasting, God is this unending, everlasting source of peace, right? God has more than enough peace for me, for you, and for every other person on the planet.
Yep.
Right? And to me, like that's why when you asked your question, I was like, that's a really good because it does qualify here with everlasting strength, right? So if we're saying God is everlasting strength, right? He is an unending source of strength, right? So if I think a lot of times when we talk about, I guess it's not like necessarily a church thing, but like burnout in people's lives,
yep.
right? One of the things that's really interesting about our relationship with God, it's not that because you faithfully serve him, burnout can't happen, but I do think that there is time, or God is as this source when you rely on him, right? You have this eternal source or well to pull from for strength, for rest, for whatever the case may be, right? And I think it's something we overlook when we talk about God and who, like, we jump at God is, he's a strong God, he's righteous, he's holy, he's this, he's that. Like, we jump at those, but I think we just kind of omit the word, he is everlasting righteousness. He's everlasting strength, everlasting holiness, everlasting purity. Because now when you take your perspective of time and now kind of add it with God being an everlasting source, now we're seeing, okay, it's not just that God was there with Moses, but when he's giving Moses the 10 Commandments, that source of righteousness transcends time, and it's the same source of righteousness we have here with us today. Mm-hmm. And I think that's to me, that's just a really fun thing about God. Like, when I think about it, it's like, oh, okay, like when we talk about, I feel like it's a song, like, if he's done it once, he'll do it again and stuff like that. Well, we can say that because of God is everlasting, right? If he's literally, if he's done it before, he can do it again because he hasn't lost that power, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really cool attribute of God. Any final thoughts on that one before I go to another one?
No.
Okay. So, and I want to do that one first because I wanted that to be in the back of our minds as we talk about these more kind of direct attributes. Exodus 15:26, right, says, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord God that healeth thee. So, can you guess which attribute we're talking about now?
The one that brought the plagues upon Egypt.
I kind of want to know what that name is. I'm not going to lie.
The God that heals.
So, yes. So, the God that heals, or the Lord that heals, right? Jehovah Rapha. Mm-hmm. I'll ask, well, you can talk to it first. I know you've probably heard this, again, like, to the point where does hearing God heals, has it ever become like white noise to you in a sense of just like, well, duh?
Yes. Sometimes, like, there was a period where it was. But I think a lot of times, like, when I came out of that period, I realized that God healing doesn't always look the way that you want it to look. Because, like, just, I don't know how to phrase this, but, like, I think healing doesn't just mean curing someone from an illness, a sickness,
100%.
an ailment, or whatever. But I think it also classifies as just removing a person from a certain situation, right? So someone may have passed from an illness. That doesn't mean that God hasn't healed them, if that makes sense.
It 100% does.
Because I don't think just because it didn't happen in the way that I want it to doesn't mean it didn't happen. And that's kind of, there was a point where it was like, oh, God is the God that heals, right? You know, it'll happen and whatever, whatever. And so you're looking for certain things in certain ways. And then it doesn't happen that way. But then that doesn't mean then that God is not the God that heals.
Yes. And it sucks because, and I wonder if you had the same realization just knowing certain things. I had that realization at like a funeral, right? And I was there and I was just like, oh, okay, I get it now, right? And it, you know, and again, it doesn't take away from the sadness of losing someone. And I don't mean that, but it was, that revelation was so impactful to me, where it kind of brought saying God is a healer, it removed it from like that white noise place. And the reason I say white noise is just for the two of us, I think it's safe to say, growing up in church, you hear so many things that so often it's just like, okay, like,
Yeah.
sure, like, and I don't even mean in a sarcastic way. I mean, like, yeah, no, God heals. Okay, what's your point? Like, you know, like,
Yeah, like it is.
yeah. But then, like you said, I think there's a lot of times we're looking for God to heal. I think of it as like the TV way,
Yeah.
right? Like if you've watched any medical show, if the doctor has healed someone, they come out, there's some type of recovery.
Yep.
Right? Typically in a medical TV show, if the patient dies, it's, no one goes, oh, well, that doctor healed them. Right? Like no one has ever said that.
Yeah.
On a medical TV show, right? Like, so it's again, right? What does healing look like? And I think to the point we were trying to make in the last episode about why it's important to know these attributes of God, it's not just enough for us to know God is peace, God is everlasting, God is a healer, but rather to understand when God is everlasting and he transcends time the way you described it, and then I don't know what it would be for, he's just an unending source of healing. Well, what does that actually look like from God's eyes, right? And I think a lot of times it is hard for us to understand what that looks like from his eyes, because I think there are things that God does that he knew that this was always going to happen, right? And it's not bad, but because it has created a wound for us or has invited some type of pain into our life, we go, why, God, why? Right? And I don't think that's a wrong feeling to have. I just think that, again, as we get to know God and really begin to move past some of the surface level knowing God, then you really get to, I think that's when you really start to experience just how truly great God is and how good he is. I feel like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about last episode about like the misplaced prayer. I feel like this is a misplaced sentiment as well. Whereas it's like, yes, these things can cause you pain or can bring pain and suffering, but well, first of all, is it something that you've brought upon yourself based on your own actions that you've done? Is it something that you're meant to learn from and grow from? Or is this just like a part of life? And then you can kind of, and obviously it's hard to do that sometimes in the situation itself. But when you can shift gears and remind yourself that God is a good God, right? God is gracious, God is just, God is like, he's so many things. So he would never put you in a situation solely to hurt you.
Correct, yeah.
Right? There is never going to be a time where God is like, I just want you to suffer. Right? There's going to be either a meaning behind it, or there's going to be something you're supposed to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
And whether that's like learning that I made this mistake and I should not do this again, or it's like you're put through a trial so that you can hone in on your skills or focus on God, or like do whatever it is that you need to do that he's calling you to do.
Yeah, I think, it's God is not a malicious God where he does or allows things to happen to us, around us, for his own personal amusement of, oh, it'd be really funny to see something bad happen. Yeah, that's not who God is. Right, I think it's James 1:13, right? Let no man say he is tempted. Let no man say when he is tempted, rather, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man, right? God does not operate through a place of evil, right? He may allow things to happen to us that we deem evil, right? And maybe he may even deem it evil, right? Just thinking of the story of Job, right? And what God allows to happen to Job, right?
But God may have allowed certain things to happen, but he didn't do anything to Job.
Yes, and God does not do anything.
He didn't personally inflict the suffering.
Yes, and it was never done. God did not allow it to happen because he's malicious.
Yep.
Right? He didn't go, it wasn't like when Satan, I believe the story is that Satan approaches God, if I remember correctly, and goes, oh, well, because you're protecting Job, that's why he's so faithful to you. And I was like, okay, well, I won't protect him. Right? God doesn't do it to be malicious and be like, oh yeah, let's mess with Job today. Right? It's no, I have faith in this person that despite bad things, evil things, horrific things happening to him, he will still be faithful.
Yep.
Right? And I think that's a huge distinction that we have to make in our own lives as we go through situations, right? Because I think this goes back to he's Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace, right? The God of peace does not operate from malicious intent. And I think when we begin to understand that, I think we'll still ask God the question, why did this happen in situations which we're hurt and things like that? But I think the why then becomes, I think for me, when I ask God why, it comes from a different place. It's not a place of, God, how could you be so good and allow this to happen? But rather, okay, I know you're good, and because you're good, I'm at a place where I can't see good in this situation. What is the good?
I think the question shifts from God, why did you do this, or why did you allow this, but more so just like, why did this happen in general?
Yes.
Right? And I think that's an important distinction to have, because like I said, like sometimes it's I put myself in the situation. God had nothing to do with it. But yet I'm blaming him because I don't recognize that it was my misstep that put me here. But if you were to ask God, like blankly, like, why did this happen, right? I mean, even you can even ask like, God, why did you allow this to happen, if that's where your mind is at. But it's up to you then to take what it is that he's telling back to you in whatever way that may be, to recognize that, like, hey, actually I did this to myself. This isn't God's doing in my life.
Yeah, because, even to that, right, I think of being as we were recording this, Easter was not too long ago, right? And one of the things, I think it's when we do the plays, I think it's a line we kind of just omit from the story, right? Because I think we just don't have the casting to do it, of the soldiers asking Jesus, well, like, if you're really the Son of God, why don't you have the angels come down and rescue you and things like that, right? And I know my initial thought of that sentence or questioning, right, has always been like how stupid, like, is it for them to ask, like, almost like I don't want to use the word, but like a blasphemous kind of thing.
But I think from their perspective, it's also like, if you prove it,
and
right?
and that's where, like, certain things in my mind were like, oh no, this was probably, like, if I was there, I probably would have said the same thing. Like, you're like, God, why are you allowing this to happen to yourself?
Do you know how many people would have converted?
Yeah, 100%.
But right? Also, like,
well, would they be able to convert if he didn't die on the cross?
Because he wouldn't have defeated death and died martyred for their sins. I don't think so. Maybe not. That's
the kind of questions we need to ask on this podcast.
All right, next episode. Send them in.
But yeah,
Do you remember when someone asked, did Adam and Eve have belly buttons?
Yes. So, I think that it's...
That was a really good question, though.
No, like, what's fun about this conversation is, I think, this is how you get to know God.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to go, well, I know enough to know you can convert because Jesus died on the cross for your sins.
Part of accepting salvation is the ABC.
Yeah. But if he didn't do that, he could have done something that would have made a lot of people believe in him, but then how would they convert?
Yeah. I mean...
And I'm not saying we have to answer that. I'm just saying, like, this is how you get to know God.
I feel like they could have converted, but I don't think it would have held the same weight.
They would have to convert to Judaism, I think.
Well, because the disciples converted, and that was before he died on the cross.
Did they convert before he died on the cross?
I would assume.
Were they able to? They were followers of Christ.
In my mind, that means they converted. They were following his teachings and his...
Does following his teaching... Anyone can follow Christ's teaching.
What's the next name?
Christian. I'm trying to think which one we should talk about next now. Okay. Jehovah Ra. R-A-A-H. I'm assuming that's just Ra, or not Ra. You want to take a guess as to what that means?
No.
It's from Psalm 23.
This is going to make me look really bad.
The Lord is my shepherd.
Okay. Oh, I was hoping I was like questioning it in my mind. I was like, I don't remember which Psalm this is.
How do you forget Psalm 23?
Because I remember the scripture, but I don't, I can remember the words, but I don't always remember where they come from.
Fair. I feel the same way. But I feel like Psalm 20, it's like so there. Just out there.
Because because we also did a series on like Psalm like 119 or something like that.
I don't even remember
we did on like and so that's, so I was like, am I mixing it up?
So the Lord is my shepherd, right? So verse 1 is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I'm not going to read through the entire chapter, Even though it's actually pretty short compared to some of the other scriptures we've read recently. But I guess I'll talk first this time because I've kind of had you go first last few times. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. An important, this is one of the more obviously popular, I think, passages of the Bible that kind of makes its way into secular culture, right? Because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people who know they may not know it's Psalm 23, but like, you know, if you say the Lord's, they'll know sort of bits and pieces of it because it is just such a, I don't know if profound is the right word, but it's just such a, I don't know what the right word is for it. It's not, I don't know if profound is, but it's like, it's almost like, it's like
like one of those common knowledge, like popular saying.
But with that, right, for me, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The first thing that it makes me think, right, is obviously if the Lord is my shepherd, then I'm the sheep, right? And from my understanding, sheep are not smart animals. So I feel better when I do dumb things because I now know
it's in my nature.
It's in my nature, right? But it's really interesting that it goes, the Lord is my shepherd, right? And the shepherd is the one who would take care of and provide and do all these things for the sheep. The sheep just kind of have to, I said sheeps, the sheep just have to exist, right? And the next part of that verse is, so the Lord is my shepherd, and for me, I shall not want, right? Like it is a truly profound thing when you think about the fact that it's just saying, God will take care of everything, right? It is in his nature. It is who he is to do that, to put you in a place where you actually don't have to be in want of anything, right? To me, that understanding of who God is profound. Thoughts?
I agree. Yeah, the shepherd he provides it all for the sheep, right? He feeds them, he guides them, he leads them. He like protects them from other animal harm. But I think it's the way we differ from sheep is that we have the ability to take control sometimes. And I think allowing yourself to resist or to release that need, I know for me, I'm speaking for me, that is one of the things that I had to learn, to allow God to be the shepherd, to allow him to take care of everything. But once you do, like I was telling my mom the other day, I was like, I feel like I should be more anxious or I should be more concerned with how certain things are going to play out. And she was like, why? And I was like, because I don't have my hand on it. And she's like, good. Basically. And I was like, I know. I was like, I'm just saying that this is such a foreign feeling to me because I always have to like know things. But excuse me. It is one of those things that is freeing when you can allow God to be the shepherd, to like lead you and guide you and to do the things that he can and will do for you.
Yeah. The only thing I actually just want to add, I totally agree with everything you said there. It's just I think it goes back to the free will part, right? Of the difference between, us and sheep is if you put a sheep in a field, I'm assuming sheep they just eat grass or whatever. If you put them in a field with grass, they're going to eat the grass, right? We're not like that, right? We will be, I don't really want grass today, Or
this is a little too yellow.
Yeah, like is there better grass over there, right? Sheep don't really do that, from my understanding at least, right? So and I believe it's David that wrote this psalm, right? As he's talking about it, it makes me kind of think of a description of a relationship we should be having with God, in which it's not that we ignore our free will, right? Because God gave us free will. That's how he created us. But rather that we would surrender to him. And I think that's what, when the Bible talks about surrendering to Jesus or to God, or when we sing that very old hymn of I surrender all, I think, to me, this is what it's pointing to, right? I surrender all because the Lord is my shepherd. I don't surrender all just because he is God. Mm-hmm. I surrender all because he is God, but he is my shepherd.
I think that is a use of your free will, though, to give it. Like, I'm not entrapped in something where it's like, I have no other choice but to follow God and to do these things. But also, I don't have another choice because I've seen, right? So it would be mindless of me to act a different way.
Yeah.
But instead, I feel like a lot of people don't see acting on religion or like giving things to God as an act of free will sometimes.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So like one of my friends, like a while ago, it was like, choosing, like, following God is a choice, right? And I was like, yeah, that's I have free will to make that choice for me. But I feel like a lot of times people, I don't know if I'm phrasing this, if I'm saying this correctly or like makes sense, but a lot of times people don't see choosing religion and choosing God as use of your free will. They see it more as like, do you know what I mean?
So the two things that popped in my head as you were talking was, using us again as example, for us, our parents were very devout in faith when we were born. So for us, I can see some people looking from the outside in going, did you really have a choice? Is this something you actually wanted to do, or is it just something your parents forced on you? Because I do remember one girl that I went to high school with who was like sort of like a self-proclaimed like Satanist kind of thing. I just think she was more emo than the other emo kids, realistically. But she always had like a shirt with like the upside down star on it and stuff. It's like, yeah, and I was like, all right. But I remember one day, like, someone's like, yo, why are you saying this? Like, someone just blatantly asked her that, and I was like, why didn't I ask her that? Like, right? And she was just like, my grandmother forced me to go to church when I was younger, and I didn't like going to church.
She's just acting out.
Yeah, right? And I get that, right? But I think sometimes people think, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Someone forced you to do something, so now you do the opposite or you abandon it or whatever, right? I think some people have a hard time understanding, okay, yes, I will admit there was a time in my life when I was forced to go to church. Now, I think forced is a strong word. When I am a minor and I can't be left at home by myself, I have to go to church with my parents. Like, there's no way around that, right? Now, maybe there are other aspects of it that you can say I was forced to do. Fine, whatever, right? At some point, though, as an adult who is still now going to church very regularly and doing all these things, I feel it is safe for me to say, no, this was my choice, right? I chose to be here, right? We don't have to be here to record these videos, right? Like, we choose to do this, right?
Unless you don't want us to.
Let us know in the comments. Or I guess don't, because no one's watching. All right, never mind. I'm going through
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I think that's kind of that. And I think there was another thing about not having choice when it comes to our faith. I honestly think part of it is people don't understand that when given a choice to do something and we choose to abstain from it, it's like, oh no, you're being forced to do that. Like, no, I am choosing not to do this. There is a difference between being forced to not do something and me saying, no, I don't want to do this. And I think that's part of people go, oh, maybe you're forced to. No, I'm choosing not to do this.
How did we get on this topic?
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And surrender is not
You're right.
a lack of free will.
Free will.
The fact that I remember
That's
that.
crazy. And to such like,
We're ending the episode right there. That's a high
you gotta
point.
end it on a high.
That's bye. any closing thoughts?
No, I'm good with that. I'm good. I don't think I can top that.
All right. I got nothing else now.
I think that was the last of your rain power. That was really it. That was it.
Bye.